All right, Stefan Aarnio. Listen, brother, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Yeah, listen, man, I got my good friend Stefan Aarnio here. This guy is a serial entrepreneur. He's a real estate investor, real estate coach. He's an author of Self Made. One of my personal favorites, Money People Deal, The 10 Commandments of Negotiations, The Close, Seven Levels, Selling in Hard Times Create Strong Men. That's your newest one. And I'm loving that book. It's great.
Oh,
So
thank you.
welcome. Thanks for being on the show.
How far are you in the book, Gary? It's a 624 pages.
You know what, man? I'm actually listening to the audio recording. I'm loving that because I'm a type of person where I'm driving. I love listening to audio. So you've got a great voice as well too. So that
Awesome.
definitely helps.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
6 hour audio book. So I did that in 3 shifts.
Okay.
So that was a long audio book. But yeah, that's great. A lot of people buy the physical copy and the PDF or whatever because they want to see the charts. There's a lot of charts.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's awesome, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
It is, man. I've always enjoyed your stuff, man. I always remember you coming out and supporting my real estate investment group from day one, right? So we go way back, way back. But
Yeah.
listen, yeah, but listen, man. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now in the world, and that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you because I know you're one of the guys that's really on top of it. You know, you've kind of predicted some of this stuff that we're kind of going through. But before we kind of jump right into it, here's what I want to do because I don't think enough people understand how money works. And I know that you have a fairly decent understanding of it. And can we maybe kind of get into that so that people can understand why we're in this situation that we're in?
Well, when you say situation, do you mean the COVID virus or do you mean
No, more like just how money works. I mean, even if it wasn't the COVID virus, I think you probably believe that we would have eventually been in some type of a situation like this, correct?
Right. Well, yeah, my book, Hard Times Create Strong Men, I predicted in 2020 we were going to have an event that's going to shake everything up and start a war. And I don't think we're very far away from that right now. But money, the thing with money is the only real money on the earth is gold. And, some
Right,
people say, yeah, Bitcoins are valuable. Bitcoin is not even an asset. It's not a store of value. It doesn't transfer value well. It's not an asset. Gold is the only money. All other currency are fiat currencies, which means they're fake. They're printed. So I think a big key with being a real estate investor or someone who wants to get wealthy and rich in their life is to understand what money is. Because when you understand money and you understand what money is and the fact that fiat currency always collapses and goes to zero at some point, it always becomes worthless. And we're starting to see that in the United States where um, quantitative easing is taking place. They're printing $1 trillion a day. What that's going to do is smash the remainder of the middle class because the inflation is going to go up. And I was saying to my mom the other day, I used to buy a cheeseburger in grade 8 at McDonald's for 39 cents. And then today it's 2.29 for the same cheeseburger.
right,
So that's 15-year time frame, 20-year time frame, 600% increase in cheeseburger prices. And then you look at the house I grew up in was 150,000 in the 90s. My parents paid for it. Today it's worth 650. So that same house, they don't live there anymore. They divorced. They sold it for 230. That same house is worth 650. So the house went up 400 to 600% as well. So, the thing you have to ask yourself is, did the house get 600% better? No. Is the cheeseburger 600% better? No. What happened is the currency is 600% weaker. But the problem is the government will tell you, oh, inflation's 2% a year. Don't worry about it, kids. And really, like over the last 20 years, it's been about 600% looking at cheeseburgers. So when you look at gold, when you look at cheeseburgers, when you look at houses, things people actually buy and use, our currencies got very weak. And there's a page in Hard Times where I map out a chart of gold throughout history. And gold has always been the same purchasing power. In ancient Rome, you could buy a toga, a pair of sandals, and a haircut for an ounce of gold. Today, you can buy a finely tailored suit, a fine pair of shoes, and a haircut as a businessman for an ounce of gold at the mall at Harry Rosen, a nice, good suit, not a shitty suit.
hmm
So the gold is still worth the same amount. It has never changed throughout history. Gold never goes up. The only thing that happens is cash money goes down. Now, in 1968, minimum wage was $1.31 or something.
Yep.
And gold was, I think, $31.31. And you extrapolate out to 2014, minimum wage is $7.25, and gold is like 1,400 or something. Now, when you do the math and you convert those values, today's minimum wage, if it was 1968, should be 103,000 US. So the reality is minimum wage in the States is 13,000. So we've lost 90% of our purchasing power since 1968. And this is where real estate becomes a good idea, because real estate, holds its value. And if the neighborhood gets better, it becomes a better asset, right? Or if you
Right.
fix it up, it becomes better. Whereas your money keeps getting more worthless. That's why savers are losers.
And I think the big thing too, right? If you go back to, what was it, 1971, right? Richard Nixon took the US dollar off of the gold standard, right? Or unpegged it
I
off
think
gold.
it might be 68.
Was it 68 that happened?
It was right
Yeah,
around that.
it was around there.
It was
Okay.
Vietnam War, and what happened was America was losing the war, and America was the gold-backed reserve currency, and other countries like Germany and France started
Mhm.
cashing in their U.S. dollars for gold, because you could go to, anywhere and cash in a U.S. dollar for gold back in the day. It was legal tender and it was tied to gold. And Nixon, I guess they didn't have enough gold in the vault or something. He took them off the gold standard, which allowed them to print unlimited money, which, that's what happens in wars, actually. I'm writing a book right now called Blood of Kings, and it's about the wars and kings and printing unlimited money to defeat your enemy. And that's what they started doing, is printing unlimited money. And now we're at the point where they're printing $1 trillion a day in the United States. And that sounds like the end. $1 trillion a day is an unsustainable amount of money.
Right. And look, I think Canada's turned their printing presses on for the first time, correct? So they're going to be pretty much doing the same thing.
We're always printing in Canada to keep up with the US. So whatever the US does, we have to do too, because
Okay.
we want to sell our stuff to them. If they print and we don't, our dollar gets too strong, and then they don't buy our stuff, and then we're unhappy. So, Trudeau and the government like to have a weak dollar because Americans buy more stuff from us.
Right.
And our dollar is tied to oil. So when oil goes down, our dollar goes down. When oil goes up, our dollar goes up. So there's a whole economic world there of what's tied to what, and what makes this go up and what makes this go down.
Right. All right. So now let's kind of fast forward into obviously the situation that we're in today, because I think a lot of people want to know, how do they get themselves out of this, or what's coming? So we're in it now. Where do you see things going? What can people really do to prepare themselves for what may be coming next?
Well, I think this year we got COVID virus right now. I think it's going to last for 2 months. And then I think we're probably going to see a war this year, either an American Civil War or a kinetic war, maybe with China, or a proxy war.
Yeah.
We're already seeing an economic war. Like, this virus right now is an economic warfare. And instead of dropping troops and drones and bombs, they dropped a virus that is an invisible enemy. And we are in war measures right now in Canada. America's in war measures, and it is war. So in a sense, we're already in a war. It just hasn't gone kinetic where people are firing bullets. So, this is in my book, I talk about the 20-year cycle and 80-year cycle. We're going to have 80 years of hard times here, Gary. And so what that means,
You're predicting that long?
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the down part of the cycle. We were, guys like you and me, we grew up in the cakiest, tastiest time in the West. Like, if you lived through the 90s and didn't get rich, fuck you. That was the easiest time to get rich in history. Everybody was, the economy went up the whole time. Everyone was winning. Like, you could be stupid and make money in the 90s. 2000s, it started declining a bit. And now we're in 20 years of hard times. So what that means, if you're smart, is we have lots of bargains, great time to accumulate assets and get rich. But if you're not very smart, and if you don't have good training and don't know what's going on, it could be 20 years of really hard times for you.
Right. And so what about gold and silver? I mean, should people be taking a look at maybe getting into that? And should it be on the paper side? Should it be actually getting the bars of gold and the coins of silver? I mean, you hear a lot of people talking about that stuff.
Well, if you're going to do that, you might as well get a gun
Okay.
because, violence is the real gold standard on the earth.
Right.
And, you can go buy some gold or silver, but at the end of the day, I mean, that's good in a currency collapse. But like I said, if your currency collapses, there's going to be violent gangs in the street and you probably should have a gun. So I would say you should be buying a gun before you buy gold. And, this is like one of those prepper situations where do you get a bunker? Do you get gasoline, a big tank of it? Like, how far do you go with this? Right.
Right. And you know what? And I forgot to tell people before this show started that, we're probably going to go deep in this one here. So if this is going to be a little too rough for you guys, because Stefan, that's why I brought you on, you always speak the truth and I like it. And you'll go into areas where a lot of people won't touch. Right. So you're saying buy guns over gold or silver.
Well, America's sold out of guns right now. Like the guns.
Yeah.
So
really,
that's like, this is a funny thing. During hard times, everyone becomes a conservative. They're homeschooling and buying guns. Well, these liberals before were sending their kids to the liberal schools and, I don't think I should own guns. Well, guess what? Now those guys are buying guns and homeschooling. So I think we're going to see a big political shift in the States and in Canada. I think you're going to see more conservatives. The last election, we had 75% people vote socialism. And after this wartime measures, you're probably going to see it swing conservative now because people have been living conservative. And conservatives are usually conservatives because they're threatened. They own a business, they own a farm, they own stuff that could go down, right? The liberals usually don't own those farms and businesses. They work for the government, they're students, they're children, they're just people who live off the system. The system pays them, the government pays them. So I think we're going to see a lot more people turning conservative right now because we're going to see the government not be able to help us.
Right. And so, I mean, you hear about the government talking about, introducing this $82 billion bailout. I mean, Stefan, is that even going to even work? I mean, you can even see these small businesses even coming back after this.
Well, they're supposedly going to give, I might say the word supposedly because, well, believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
$82 billion in Canada to small businesses to pay $1,300 per month to employee. So it's a subsidy. Well, that's 3% of GDP. To run the country, you need 8% of GDP. So you're 5 points short. So like it's going to handle a little bit of the burden, but it's not going to, like if you're wiped out right now and have no sales, you're just screwed.
Right.
If you're missing 30% of your sales or whatever, maybe it'll hold you. But, just like America, they're offering everyone $1,000 and the Democrats just shot it down, which I think is the stupidest thing they could do right now. Because in the fall, when they want to get elected, all the Republicans have to say is you shot down the bill, give everyone $1,000 and everyone's going to lose their mind.
Why were they shutting it down though? Was it because the Democrats are throwing some crazy stuff in there, windmills and new Green Deal and all that?
Yeah, they went new Green Deal. They pulled out all this crap that they wanted. And it made no sense. Like, I don't know why they didn't just say, yeah, let's do it because, you could have martial law pretty soon and people shooting each other. $1,000 will probably push that back 30 days.
Yeah. So then in regards to what's going on up here in Canada, and a lot of people are asking this particular question, because it sounds like we might be going, it just might be lasting for quite some time, especially what you think. Should they be taking that mortgage deferral? Should they be trying to go liquid? Because I mean, look, I know there's a lot of investors out there that are, they've over leveraged. What are your thoughts?
Oh, buddy, I real estate investors that listen to this show, my guess is 90% or 95% are over leveraged.
Mm-hmm.
And like I did my coaching calls with my students, I guess 60%, 70% are over leveraged. And this is what I've been saying for a long fucking time, Gary. Like, excuse my F-bomb.
No, it's all right, man. And listen, I've been listening to you, my friend. So I did what you told me to do, and I did it last year.
Well, dude, I've been saying get liquid, increase your income, go into sales, build a business. You need cash, cash, cash. And everybody has too much debt. Every idiot on the internet with a YouTube channel is leveraging his stuff to get more stuff. And he has no income. So right now, if you have no income and a bunch of debt and a bunch of assets that are screwed up, like, dude, I did 4 roofs in the last 5 months. And I just had to pull the money out of my account, my flush cash account that, is my business, and pay it, because that's what it is. You got 4 smashed up roofs. But if there's a guy out there who has, let's say, 10 properties and he calls himself the king of Mississauga or the king of London, Ontario, so smart.
Yeah.
And then, a crisis hits him. He's screwed. He's over leveraged. He has no income. He has no proper business to support those assets. And I think you're going to see a lot of guys like that go down.
Mhm.
What is smart right now is if you can refinance your portfolio, put your cash in the bank and just sit there. That's something I'm considering. Mortgage deferrals, I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I've heard they flag you as financial hardship. So if that's the case, I would say think about it. If there's no downside, then do it, right? My banker at BDC gave me interest only, no principal on my loan. So they just offered the concession. I took it, no big deal. But when you deal with RBC or a big bank, the big banks, they don't like you very much. They're not on your team.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And so look, I know when it first came up, we were telling people to take the deferral because, and especially if you're not liquid, but looking into it and digging into it a little bit more, I think that could be the problem. They may potentially hit you, right? So I don't know if they're going to do something with your credit in regards to that or not, right? So the message really here is, just make sure that when you reach out to your bank, you ask some of those really important questions, right? I think that's super important.
Yeah, Gary, the dark thing about the banks is I don't even know if they'll tell you if it's going to hit you or not.
Yeah, I think you're right. They probably won't. And listen, and here's a problem too, is that when you
flag, you have flag on your account.
Right. The problem is too, is when you're calling those banks, you're just talking to some frontline worker. They're not going to know.
Well, it's interesting. I was closing on a condo,
Yeah.
Just as an investment, and I had a developer owe me a bit of money, so he was giving me a condo for free. And it cash flows a bit of money, and it's in Winnipeg downtown. I'm like, okay, fine, free condo. How can you say no? And I have this thing at RBC, done 2 mortgages with them. This is our 3rd one in a row. And the mortgage broker just disappears, or the RBC person. And we're trying to close this thing. Well, I guess they're swamped with deferrals right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like I really, we did a call yesterday with Dave Dubois, and I think there's 4,000 investors on that call registered.
Yeah, it was a great calls on that one.
A lot of people were asking dumb shit like legal questions. I think the real questions you got to ask is like strategy and mindset right now, not like, can I legally kick my tenants out? Like, nobody knows. That's going to change month to month.
Right.
Right. But people always like to go legal, and they always like to build up a big portfolio with too much debt. And you watch, man, all the people that are RAIN members are going to be smashed pretty soon. All the people, because RAIN does that. They get you in way too much debt. You can't support it. All the people out there who think they're so smart and they're stretching their pennies to get in 10 properties, they're screwed. They're all screwed right now because there's probably not enough equity and no income and no cash reserve.
Yeah, no, you're right. And look, they passed a law pretty much saying that you cannot evict a tenant. And some of these tenants now are getting together and saying, we're not paying rent for April. And that's kind of going viral right now all over Facebook and all the other social media platforms, right? So
that's
right.
kind of stupid, because like EI should be supporting them, and they should have some support. Like a lot of tenants get government money anyways. Like if you're a tenant, you probably have some sort of assistance.
I think the hard part and the tricky part is going to be, when do they get the assistance, right? For some of these tenants.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to do what you can do with the tenants. I don't think about it too much. I have managers managing, and we
Hmm.
get what we get, right? I mean, I'm not going down there myself right now because I need to focus on making money, and I think that's something people have to focus on right now is increasing their income, increasing their skills, learning to sell, finding stuff people want to buy. Like maybe people aren't doing your business right now. Gary's showing homes, but dude, you could get in the fucking toilet paper business right now, or the paper towel business, or like there's so many businesses that are suddenly huge opportunities. And I think people get focused on the old thing they had and they don't look at what's the new opportunity under this. Like all
Right.
this delivery services are huge. E-commerce is huge. My company, I made the decision years ago to stop doing seminars, and we do phone sales only and online and e-commerce only. I saw the writing on the wall 5-6 years ago. I knew
Yeah.
this was coming. I knew that the world was changing. I knew that at some point it would be ineffective to put people in a room. And now we're at the point where you can't put people in a room. So think of all these companies going out of business right now. I bet you the big seminar companies in the States are probably just withering up right now. And my company, I think, is going to grow because we've beat the future. We're here in the future now.
Are you doing like online training? Is that kind of what you're focusing on?
Well, our coaching at Black Card U, we do it all over the phone, and we have online, and we ship them products, and we do 4 seminars a year that are optional, but you don't have to come to them. And the students, it's like you don't need to be physically there with the student.
Hmm.
So it's all about the materials, it's all about the writing, it's all about the documents, it's all about the phone support. And our program, the coach is calling the student every week. Well, a lot of these people probably will never meet their coach even.
Right.
So, it
So,
doesn't matter. And then the salespeople, they'll never meet the salesperson. So it's the future, right? Like we're living in the future now. Whereas people who wanted to drive down to Sears to pick up a dishwasher, that's over.
yeah. You know what I was even thinking about as well too, because now up here, what you're seeing is a lot of people. Obviously, they're working from home now. Um, you're going to see some innovations, right? They've created additional VPN tunnels so they can actually do their work. I think some of these big businesses may just end up realizing, you know what, we don't even need some of these office spaces downtown. They might even just like, who knows where it's going, but they might even just turn that into, condos or apartment buildings or whatever, right? Because everybody's working pretty much from home now. Everybody's doing these podcasts and video conferencing,
Well,
right?
there's going to be a revolution for sure. I mean, on the business side, my company Black Card's already there. Like we've got licensing where people become coaches through us and they work from home.
Hmm.
Um, we've got another license called the Black Diamond where people become a salesperson, work from home. So we already got opportunities like that. But that's the business side. The side I'm worried about is the government side where they take away our freedoms. Like 9/11, if you recall, 20 years ago, going to the airport used to be fun. And now it's no
Yes.
fun because they put all this bullshit there. And what I'm worried about is after this COVID, what measures are going to stay. You have to get a microchip installed in you, or you have to get a mandatory vaccine, or you can't fly if you don't have a vaccine, or all sorts of bullshit. Like that's the thing that the government always does is they get in there with their little grubby claws and they get into something. And like, dude, like income tax was put in World War I for the war temporarily. It's never come off.
Right.
Temporary measures. It's been there for like 100 years.
And what better time to do what you want to do to the people when they're in fear? I mean, this is the best time because now the government's going to look like the people's savior.
Well, they say never waste a good crisis.
Yeah, I've heard that many times.
Well, and
Yeah.
this is what's going on. And what's shitty about it, Gary, is I don't really think it is even a crisis. Like, obviously, if you're in Italy, it's a big problem. If you're, in China, they've already licked it. So they've already got things happening over there.
Hmm.
But in select places, it for sure is a problem. But I think in most places, it's not a problem.
Right.
And that's where the fear is worse than the thing we're afraid of.
Yeah, and look, and the tricky thing is, not even tricky thing, but here's what's going to happen afterwards, right? Is that it's almost like the cure is going to be worse than the virus itself. I mean, imagine how many you think people are depressed, a couple months ago. Imagine how many people are going to be depressed when we come out of this, right?
Well,
Can't get their jobs back.
that's another strange thing is, what's the effects of having everyone stay home for 2 months? Like, what does that do for mental health? What does it do for a million things? I've been lying around at home so much, I got blood clots in my leg. So like, damn, I had some surgery a couple years ago, and I got blood clots. And once you get blood clots, you got blood clots. So I got blood clots in my leg from lying around. Well, guess what? A bunch of people lying around for 2 months, 3 months. What does it do to your population? That's probably just as many health problems as the virus.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. And so, where do you see this going? Are we going to a recession, or is this deeper? Are we going into a depression?
Well, I said it's gonna be 20 years, and we're gonna have a war.
Yeah,
So it's big, man. It's big. Like, there's gonna be a war that's gonna have its own opportunities and chaos. And then we got 20 years of, I think it's gonna be down for 20 years. Obviously, 10 years from now, it'll start trending up. But you can look at page 401 in my book. I got the chart mapped right out. You can just take whatever year you want and just point to it. You'll see if it's going to be a good year or a bad year.
right. Okay. And then, so even though you think that there may be a war, do you think it's going to be guns and bullets? Do you think it could be something different along the lines of maybe cyber? And then Trump launched, was it SpaceX or something like that? Or I can't remember. There was something he was doing, or Space Force.
Yeah, SpaceX is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Well, we already are in a biological warfare. This is from China, and we are in biological warfare right now. Like, this is a depression already, or it's a recession at least.
Yeah.
And it is a biological warfare. And I think they're not calling it that to keep the guns and missiles down. And if the public heard it was biological warfare, we would demand missiles. I don't know if you heard this, but a couple American warships were in the South Chinese Ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and the Chinese boats came out and said, "Get out of here, or we're going to shoot an EMP at you." Electromagnetic pulse, which is non-lethal, but we've already got threats of, "Hey, we're going to start shooting shit at you."
Mm-hmm.
So, China is imperialist. They're expanding west. They're building a highway across Asia to Africa. They've dropped off 300 million people in Africa to colonize Africa. They've taken a whole bunch of ports in Africa. Like, these people are colonizing like Europeans were, and they're going west. And I think there's going to be like a turf war. Obviously, America likes to keep its bases too. So we'll see what happens.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, there's definitely going to be some very interesting times going forward. I mean, so somebody's listening to this right now. What should they be doing? I mean, you've been sharing some interesting ideas and thoughts.
Well, I think
How do they protect themselves?
Well, you got to get educated. Your education is the key. The more you read, the more you know. Learn to sell. That's the biggest skill.
Let's go back to the reading piece, though, Stefan. So when you say read, I mean, are you talking about like going back and really studying history, understanding what happened in the past, so you can get a better, clearer view of the future?
Yeah, like, dude, I have a prophet beard, but I'm not a prophet. I just studied history.
It's a great looking beard, man. I love it.
I like it too. So
Yeah.
I studied history, and that's why I know what's coming. And I think if you want to study history, that's a great place to start. The history books are skewed, and the history books are edited. So you're going to take a couple different perspectives. Reading, I think, is a good time to read a book a week. Start reading a lot. You might as well. I think audiobooks are not as good. I think
YouTube's not as good. Like, you just don't retain it when you sit there with a physical book. I think that's the best way to do it. So really, like, old school reading. And then that goes into, I think it's time to skill up and get your sales skills on.
Right.
your
But
real estate.
I think that's important. But I really want to kind of get back to that reading. Like, what specifically, though, Stefan? Is there something about, like, is it about the wars that have happened? Is it about, how countries have had conflicts in the past? Like, what is it about? Studying money?
Well, I mean, dude, I've read a lot of books. So like you could start by reading Hard Times Create Strong Men by me. You could read The Fourth Turning by Howe and Strauss. You could read anything by Will Durant. Lessons from History is a great book by Will Durant.
Yeah.
There's another one I like. It's a banned book called A History of Central Banking by Stephen Milford. I really like that book. It's amazing, but it's banned because it tells you, it talks about the good things Hitler did. And, you talk about the good things Hitler did in the West, especially in America, you're a neo-Nazi.
Yeah.
So, there's two sides to every history, right? And Hitler lost the war, so he was a demon, but if he won, he'd be God. So it's interesting to look at the opposite sides of history and see what went on the other side, because our side that we get is so whitewashed. Like, we don't talk about the American Nazi Party. We don't talk about all the American support for the German Nazis. We don't talk about America's Time Magazine of the Year twice for Hitler in the 30s. Like, they loved him, man. And then, of course, they had to kill him and kill his character. But
Right.
this is history when you start looking at history. And the reason why I'm talking about Hitler right now is Hitler led Germany out of the biggest depression ever to superpower in 3 years.
Yeah.
And that book by Stephen Milford shows you how he did it. And that's probably something like that's probably going to happen here, where Trump has to do some extreme shit to get America out of the dumps. Because America's in the dumps.
Yeah. The world's, well, some countries are in the dumps. We'll see what happens with Canada. Now, you were also talking about skilling up, something else that they can do.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't know how to sell, especially Canadians. A lot of Canadians think that selling's dirty. That's a very British belief, like an old belief.
Mm-hmm.
And, Americans believe selling's good. They like buying and selling. British don't. So I think it's time to learn to sell. It's time to take some real estate investor training if you want to be serious about this. Like I say this to everybody, it's about $100,000 of training if you want to be a pro real estate investor. Like, everybody I've met who's very good has spent over 100. I've spent over 450. So it's time to throw down some training, some education, because this is the time when things are changing. I didn't have any education in 2008. I missed the boat. I missed that 10-year buying period.
Right.
So, I started buying in 2009, but I didn't have the skills to really do it. So training, sales training, learning to raise money, learning to build a real business. That stuff's important right now, I think, because there's going to be a lot of bargains.
Right. And I think this is also probably an important time as well, too, for people to start working on that mindset if they haven't, because the mindset is what is going to get people out of this.
Well, that's all you got to do is listen to an audiobook 2 hours a day, audio in the morning, audio at night. I'm listening to The Magic of Thinking Big right now. It's a nice positive listen.
Mm-hmm.
And, you just get on that habit of 2 hours a day, and you're going to be a nice, happy guy because you're always listening to something positive.
Yeah, I believe that. Let's get back into your book.
Turn off the negative news. Turn off the negative news too.
Yeah, you don't need it. And I mean, look, I think people are just so caught up in it and captivated that it's actually gripping them where they can't even move. Listen, you can listen to the news and stay informed with like about 10 minutes a day. You don't even need that. And you'll know what's
talk to people. Just talk to people and they're going to tell you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't even have to get the news, or what Bill Bartman, one of my billionaire mentors, used to say is get the news, read the headlines, throw it out. So
I agree.
Read the headlines, throw it out. Like, you don't have to read it. You read the headlines.
Listen, my friends are hitting me up with all kinds of texts and WhatsApp and everything. I'm getting all the news from them anyways. I don't need to turn it into news on, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's negative, and you know what? They don't know much more than you do.
Right.
So it's really no good.
So let's try and figure out what's going to happen in the future now. I know we touched on it, but let's kind of really get into your book. I mean, it's a great book. I'm trying to get myself all the way through it. Hard Times. Let's talk about that, Stefan.
Yeah. So my book, Hard Times Create Strong Men, is, what is it to be a man in the modern world in money, sex, religion, politics? And it started out as a project where I had a couple salesmen who were acting like young women, and they were complaining and saying, I don't like you. I don't like this job. I feel like a piece of shit around you. You make me feel horrible. Like just feminine excuses. And I had this, epiphany. Why are these men saying this? These are 22-year-old men. They should be the best and brightest. They look good. They're wearing suits and they're complaining like women. So, I went home and, well, first of all, I gave a 6-hour speech to these men on how to be a man, which is, do your work and earn the trust of the other men in the tribe. If a man's good at his work, everyone trusts him. If he sucks, no one trusts him. So that's the first thing. And I went home and I wrote down my lecture into a book in 11 days. And then I had Hard Times Create Strong Men. And it starts out with, what is a man? A work is his purpose. It goes into sex, women and what women want in men. Then it goes into religion and man's relationship with God. And it finishes off with politics, which is what we're talking about, and the cycles of history and how empires fall. And empires fall when the men become weak. Hard Times Create Strong Men. The culture is born with the men and it dies with the men. It's not Hard Times Create Strong Women. Nobody wants a strong woman, like a muscled up woman. And it's not Hard Times Create Strong People. It's the culture of the men that dictates everything. So right now we live in a culture where they took religion out, they took God out, they took dad out of the house. And we're now in this weak men create hard times, going into Hard Times Create Strong Men. I guarantee you, all the young men right now who are going to live through this next 20 years probably will be great fathers, because they'll probably go through all the bullshit and they'll have to, who knows, maybe they have to fight a war. Maybe they lived during the Depression. Like this is like the greatest generation. 1930 Depression, 1940 war, right? So they did 20 years of hardship. And then we went into the 1950s and 60s, which was the best time ever in history. And same thing here where, 2020, 2030 is going to be tough. And men will be turned hard again. You're going to have all these soy boy liberals have to turn into real men again. You're going to have to learn how to use a gun. You're going to have to learn how to light a fire. You're going to have to learn how to change a tire. A lot of these things that have been lost in the last 20 years with removal of the fathers and the single moms, where the government pays you to be a single mom and you get half the guy's shit. So of course we have single moms because we pay them, we reward them to become single moms. And single moms are actually the bane of society. Like that is the number one thing that ruins your society is single moms. And if I was running this place, I'd take away all the benefits from single moms, say you ladies have to get married, because the family is more important to society than having all these single people, single mom, single dad. So Hard Times is about that 80-year cycle. It's about the culture. It's about how we go from strong to weak and weak to strong. And it's super relevant right now. And people are eating it up because it's exactly what's going on right now.
And what is that poem, just for everybody? Because I don't know if you'd mentioned it, if I missed it, but there's a whole poem for that, correct?
Yeah, it goes like this. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times.
And so we were just living in the good times create weak men.
Yeah, so like 2000 to 2020. So that was the Barack Obama years. That was the George W. Bush years. Like those are two crap presidents in a row. Like George W. pretty bad. And then Obama bad for other reasons. And after you get the weakness, the pendulum swings. Now we got Trump. He's the ultimate alpha male, this guy. Like very, very alpha. Like Gary, he fucks porn stars and they have to pay him.
Yeah.
That's how alpha he is. Like, I think that one that was trying to sue him had to pay him $150,000 in damages.
Right.
So he's the ultimate alpha. And that's what people want, because we know it's a hard time and we need a strong leader.
Right. And so all these men now, they were at home playing video games, and that's where all that weakness came from. That's what you're saying.
Well, it goes further back than that. I mean, we had the feminist movement, which brought women into this entire different space. We had the homosexual movement, which took a whole bunch of good men out of the pool. And next thing you know, we got all these single moms, single dads. Single dad usually ends up in jail. Single mom ends up in low income housing. And then if you're the son of a single mom, you're probably going to jail. And if you're the daughter of a single mom, you're probably going to end up as a stripper, a prostitute, or a pregnant or rape case. So like there's really no good thing that comes from dad out of the house. And they talk about toxic masculinity, but it's the absence of the father which creates toxic. Because if dad was around, the stats on going to jail for a young man or stats on being pregnant as a teenager go away. And the girl's fine and the boy's fine and they grow up just fine. But now we got mommy's issues, daddy's issues, all this stuff because, in the 60s, we started turning really liberal. And, the feminist movement is a big proponent of that and some of these other movements.
Right. So listen, we've gotten pretty deep here. Obviously, some dark stuff as well, too, right? Which is what I wanted to do, right? And I want people to be aware of what's happening. And I think you've hit on some good points to go back and study history and read books. On the positive side of things, what can people expect? Can we get out of this in the next year or so, or maybe even specifically for them?
Well, here's what's positive. The next 20 years is bargains. So like, the last 10, 20 years, people say, I can't buy a house in Toronto. It's too expensive. Well, the next 20 years, we're going to find bargains because it's not going to be the cake and honey and ice cream and pie that we've had for the last 20 years. So this is a great time to get rich. It's a great time to get your skills together. It's a great time to buy buildings. It's a great time. Like I was saying on the call yesterday that I'm out at the bank shooting for $3 million right now because I got a bunch of stuff to buy, and I'm buying great bargains, already, and we haven't even got started. Like imagine what it's going to be like in a year, Gary. So the bargains are coming, and all the richest people in history get super rich during these 20-year depressions.
Right. So you're seeing a deflation as opposed to inflation?
I don't know. I don't know if it's going to go inflation or deflation. I don't know if anyone does. But quantitative easing would indicate inflation. A drop in interest rates would indicate inflation. But then America having the world reserve currency in America would indicate deflation. So I don't know which one it's going to be. We've seen inflation forever, which is still good if you own real estate, but it sucks to live in an inflationary environment where it's $25 for a bag of potato chips.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I have a restaurant I like to eat at here locally, and it's usually $37 for two people, tax, tip, everything, drinks. It's now $55. And, I'm rich, but I think about $55 because $55, I could go to the nicest restaurant in town and have a lunch there. Because the guy at the top, he can't raise his price. He's at the top. But the guys in the middle, and I can go to Subway sandwiches next door and have lunch for $7.50. So the guy in the middle is raising up to $55. I don't know if I want to eat there so much anymore. I'll go to Subway at the bottom, or I'll go to the nicest place in town. I don't know if this middle player is going to stay.
Right. When do you see interest rates going to zero up here in Canada?
Well, they're already zero in America, so probably not long.
Yeah. You think we can go negative?
Yep, for sure. It's already negative in Europe. So, Europe's usually ahead, and we're politically 4 years behind the U.S.
What does negative mean? What does that mean? Does that mean if I put my money in the bank, it's costing me?
Well, we already have that. They fee the shit out of you. So we already have negative interest rates in that sense. But negative mortgage would mean every year your mortgage just disappears a little bit. Like the principal gets paid down magically. And Gary, like this is the crazy part. Like I just bought a brand new 2020 Suburban. Mm-hmm. So I had my old Sebring for 11 years and I just bought this 2020 brand new Suburban, $86,000 for this vehicle. And I go into the dealership and the financing package, they got 7 years, no payments. No, 7 years, no interest, 0% interest. So you can pay that vehicle off on schedule faster than it depreciates. So that doesn't even make sense because in 3 years, a used vehicle is 55, yours is paid down to 46, and you got less mileage, and you know what you did to it for the last 3 years. So like we're at the point now where like buying a used car doesn't even make sense because the money's so cheap.
Right.
Like there's some voodoo going on, right? Like I was going to buy a 2-year-old vehicle, and I'm looking around, and the financing sucks for 2-year-old vehicles. Plus you don't know what the guy did to it. Plus the mileage is higher than I would have done. And then they pull out this 0% interest. Well, I actually did a different deal where I got a mega discount on the vehicle. And I took a 5.9% because I want the write-off. But at the end of the day, it's still better than buying used, because the deals you get with the money these days,
It's so cheap.
It's so cheap, man.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you see us going back to a currency backed by gold? You see that potentially happening? Because I mean, if you, again, go back into history, I mean, that's what's always survived, gold and silver.
I think countries like China and Russia would like that, because the prize right now is who gets to be the world currency. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a big motivation to dethrone the US because they're just printing out of control. So everyone else has to print. And I think China would like that. Russia would like that. Libya, they were stockpiling gold under Gaddafi, and he got assassinated. But, that is, I think there's a demand for that in the world. And the question is like, if it goes back to that, the countries with the gold will be the rich countries, and Canada with zero gold, it'll be totally screwed. Justin sold all our gold.
Right. Yeah, it'll be, and I mean, look, I think you end up going back to potentially maybe a gold currency when if people lose faith. And I mean, the whole world is kind of starting to lose faith in what's happening here, right?
Well, that's what I was saying. Like even Bitcoin, which is supposed to be a safe haven, is not even working. They came out with Bitcoin like, oh, it's a safe haven. It's like gold, and it's just getting messed up. And gold is gold, man. I mean, that's the thing about it. Land is land, gold is gold, and it's never changing. So, I think gold is a shitty investment personally because it has no yield and it costs you money to store it. But, there's nothing wrong with owning some gold. But if you're going to buy gold, you might as well buy a gun.
Yeah.
Now you need to defend.
I know, you know what? And it's a good point. You make a good point.
Yeah. Like if you're going that direction, you might as well buy a bunker. You might as well become a pepper. You might as well get a cottage in the woods. And like, you could go all the way down the rabbit hole to the craziest shit of gold and guns and ground and gasoline and grub, the 5 Gs.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we're quite there yet, but it could go there.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too. Now, what about, and I mean, obviously you're going to be strong in real estate, and I think you think that is still the best place to be.
You know what? I've given up on looking at other avenues. Like I invest in my own company, I invest in my books, and I invest in real estate. And I know my books. I know I can always sell them. I know I always make money. I'm selling more books than ever. Mm-hmm. My company has always been a good investment. It's my own stock. Real estate, I know it. So, good times or bad times, I know how to make money in real estate. So I was going to actually dump $100,000 into stocks the other day. And then I got some real estate deals that came up on my lap. And I just said, whatever, I'm just going to keep doing real estate because I know it. Mm-hmm. And it's my game. So I might as well keep playing my game. And that's where people get really rich. You stick on your game for 20 years. I've been in the game now for 10 or 11, closer to 10. And you just stick on your game for 20 years. You'll be fine.
Yeah. 10,000 hours.
Yeah. I'm probably past that. I'm probably past that now. But,
what stocks were you looking at?
Well, I was looking at BP right when it crashed. Oil, airlines, hotels. Yeah, all the stuff that got fucked up right away I was looking at. But I realized I was like, I can take $300,000 right now and buy $3 million of real estate that's going to be worth 5.8. So I'll be in it for 3 and it's worth almost 6. Or I can go to the stock market. Well, chances are I won't be turning 100 or 200, 300 grand into $3 million, or 2.8 or something. So I'm much better off to stick with my entrepreneurial skill set than to just ride some stocks. because I make 300% every 90 days on my ads. I know how to make very high returns, Gary. So, when I look at things to invest in, I can buy a property like a duplex, or I can put money in ads. Well, if you're making 300% on ads, and if you're making 12% on a duplex or 8, you should buy all the ads until there's nothing left to buy. And I think that investments like stocks and duplexes and shit like that should be bought when you literally have no use for your money. Like you're like, I don't know what to do with this money. I need to invest.
Right.
Right. But if I can get a faster return out of something in my company, or faster return on a book, or faster return on anything, I'll go with the faster, higher return.
Yeah. Going back to the stock market, when were you thinking about jumping in? Was there a certain particular event that you needed to see take place before you were going to make that move?
I got some friends that are stock gurus.
Yeah. Friends in high places.
Yeah. You know what, dude? I'm a fundamental investor. So like, even my buildings, I don't really mess around with them. Give them to managers, good managers. I say, here, manage this. I'll see it in 10 years. Like, I'm not micromanaging these things. I'm going to just, here you go. And, I don't think it really matters. You lock in at a good price, you wait some time frame, and then that's the game. Like I found with real estate, it takes about 10 years to make money. So like anything you invest in, you better hold it for 10 years.
Yeah, it's about right. I mean, when did you get into it? I got into it around 2008. You were, what, a couple of years after?
2009, I bought my first.
2009, yeah.
It's funny. I wish I still had that first house. It was a good house.
Yeah.
I flipped it and I made 20 grand, but it was a good house. And
go ahead.
Sorry?
No, go ahead.
So like when you let your mortgage pay down 10 years, that's a serious amount of equity. And you let your cash flow come in for 10 years, and the building stabilizes and the tenants are all like long-term, that's a good deal. But when, I got some buildings we just started and set up, the pipes are freezing because no one's lived there yet. And it's missing insulation here. And, the tenants are all moving in, moving out, and it's crazy. And, it'll be stable in like 2 or 3 years. But right now it's chaos. And you got a ton of debt. You got 80% or 75% debt on the building. And it sucks for the first couple of years. But when you get to 10 years in, you got good cash flow, life is good, equity lift is there, it's appreciated, the pay down's there. And it's actually fun owning real estate after 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what, like in the beginning, you're right. That building phase is tough because you're over leveraging yourself. But, once you're able to scale that back, then yeah, you're right. It is fun. I actually just sold my very first property about a month ago as well too.
Wow!
So it's supposed to be closing about a week or so from now. So
that's a 12-year hold.
Yeah, 12-year hold.
Well, dude, you probably made a killing on it.
Yeah, it was good. Wasn't no complaints at all. I mean, look, I bought when everybody was fearful. All right,
Right. So going back to it, now is the time to buy. I bought a house week before last for 81,000, and I signed it up at 90. I bought one across the street recently for 150 a couple months ago as a burnout, and I bought another burnout 4 houses down 10 years ago for 160. And I bought this house for 90, and the guy over the weekend said, "Close early, and we'll do it for 81." So I bought this house for 81, Gary. I'm building an $800,000 fourplex on it.
Nice.
So I'll have 300 grand of equity, and I'll have a little bit of cash flow. And a brand new building downtown Winnipeg.
Yeah. So what do you say now to these real estate investments? And I'm sure some of them are probably going to be scared now to make that move, or even if they're brand new. Do you say now is a good time to buy? Do they hold off a month or so just for, to kind of see where things go?
They got to get some liquid first. I think a lot of guys are over leveraged and going to be out of the game. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these YouTubers I see, too much debt, too much leverage. So I think we're going to see a lot of guys just slide out of the game. And then, if you're new, you got to get education. Like you got to be trained, because one bad buy will kill you. You spend 30 grand on your education, or you lose 30 grand on a flip. What would you rather do? Like you can get all the education materials and the help, probably make 30 grand, pay off the education in one deal, or go out there and just start hurting yourself.
Yeah.
So there's that. And the other thing is, dude, I mean, it's time to start writing offers. Write those damn offers. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I
find those properties that cash flow, right? No speculation. I mean, that's always been the name of the game, right?
Well, it's in a down market, it has to be cash flow.
Yeah.
There's no exceptions. Like you can't speculate right now at all.
No. Yeah. Cause look, good times, bad times, people are always going to need somewhere to live, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's true. You know, during bad times, rentals are more popular. I'm getting into mini storage right now. That's more popular during down times. You know, but you have to cash flow. I mean, that's such a basic thing. So many people right now don't have jobs, or, you know, they're retiring. You know, my mom's retiring, my dad's girlfriend's retiring, and they're like, I don't have any income. And I'm like, yeah, you have one stream and you cut it off. Right.
Yeah.
So, like, do the math, guys, right? Like, you know, you have to have multiple streams of income, cash flow, passive income. You know, like, dude, hard times. Last 4 months, I've got 13,000 in royalties from this book.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Great passive income. Great passive income. Right?
But you've always been preaching multiple streams of income, right? So, and you've done it, you've built it. Stefan, listen, brother, man, I can sit here and just talk to you all day, you know? I really can. I always appreciate.
Brotherly love.
Yeah, man. I always appreciate your insights. I think you're doing a phenomenal job. I watch most of your videos, man. I really do. And I enjoy them. And you know what I like about it too, is because you will say what you want to say and not worry about what anybody else is going to think about you, which is what I like, you know. And, you know, do I agree with everything? No, but nobody's ever going to agree with everything that anybody says. Right. But when you do get it right, man, you hit it out the park, which is what I like.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. And, you know, it's just having no fear. After publishing Hard Times, I thought I was going to lose my career. It made it bigger than ever. And, you know, surviving cancer once made me fearless. So, you know, I might as well just give it, because life doesn't go on forever, man. You might as well be authentic today.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Listen, any last piece of advice that you can leave our listeners with in regards to, you know, navigating themselves through these murky waters?
You know what? I think picking up a copy of Hard Times Create Strong Men, whether you're a man or a woman, I think it's a good buy right now, because it talks about what's happening right now, cultural, historically, cycle of war. I think it's a good read for somebody to understand why we're here. You know, I mentioned some books earlier for history. You know, read those books, learn to sell. If you're an investor, learn to be a better investor, take training. You know, you are your number one asset, so invest in yourself.
Thanks, Stefan. And listen, one of my personal favorites, one that helped me get to where I am, Money People Deal. So you guys pick up a copy of that book, self-made, phenomenal book as well too. And Hard Times Create Strong Man. I'm getting through it, and it's controversial, but it's great. I'm enjoying it. So Stefan, my friend, my brother, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. It's been a pleasure.
All right, brother. Stay safe.